The WNBA is clearly racist. Jean-Paul Gaultier is using a van to promote a divine feminine fragrance, and Democrats are still going to El Salvador. It's time for my losers of the week, but first, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the show on YouTube at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. The show starts now. So I'm just going to say it. The WNBA is racist. I think it's pretty obvious, and the laundry list of evidence just keeps growing. Most noticeably, it's the ongoing mistreatment of Caitlin Clark and the hostage statements she's been all but forced to put out, apologizing for being white and, well, let's be honest, being better than the black girls in the league. And there's no worse perpetrator of racism than Angel Reese, or I guess Angel Smollett, as we should now refer to her as. Backstory. Earlier this month, Angel Reese claimed Indiana Fever fans made racist remarks towards her during the game her team ended up losing to Caitlin Clark and the Fever. Enter Angel Smollett in her own words.
Yeah, obviously there's no place in this league for that. I think the WNBA, our team and our organization has done a great job supporting me. I've had communication from everyone, from so many people across this league, and being able to support me and going through this whole process. Obviously, it could happen to me, it could happen to anyone, and I think they've done a great job supporting us in this.
What do you think the league's response, just coming out right away and getting that investigation going?
Yeah, obviously, like I said, they understand that this is the priority. Obviously, there's no place for this, and they preach. I think 2 days before they put out no hate, no speech. And obviously, the women in this league, they know that, and know there's no space for that. And I believe that every player in this league deserves to be treated with respect and want to come to work and just have fun and have a great environment to work at. So I think they've done a great job putting that out, and we're obviously just going to respond as they need to.
Well, her claims led to an entire whole-ass investigation into her allegations, and wouldn't you know it, no evidence. Shocking. But if the WNBA really wanted to investigate racism in the league, they could do so pretty easily in the case of Brittney Griner, who you'll see there seemingly mouths something about effing white girls. Wow. I can't wait to see the investigation unfold on that one there. I'd also add that perhaps trading Griner for the Russian merchant of death wasn't the best deal we've ever made. All this to say, the WNBA is racist, and so are the so-called sports media journalists such as Jemele Hill, who perpetuate false narratives and race-hustling BS because they're not ballsy enough to just admit they hate white people. The WNBA is a joke, and even with Clark carrying the league on her shoulders, it still sucks and will go back into oblivion soon. But on to my next loser of the week, an effing white girl, as Brittney Griner would say, Dylan Mulvaney, who is now the face of Jean-Paul Gaultier's women's divine fragrance. Oh, so feminine. Mulvaney tanked Bud Light, but that wasn't enough. Dylan is now taking yet another role away from an actual woman and is applauded for it, of course. I guess designer Jean-Paul Gaultier really does believe men make the best women. Long live the patriarchy. And while the patriarchy isn't falling anytime soon, I have high hopes the Democrat Party is damn near over the cliff. Not only are they still advocating for men to dominate women's sports, they're still firmly planted on their favorite hill to die on, advocating for criminal illegal aliens. Now, I thought after all the evidence on Kilmar Abrego Garcia came out and the Tennessee human trafficking body cam footage and the protective orders against him by his wife added to the MS-13 allegations and him being here illegally, that maybe Democrats would let this go and pretend they didn't proudly campaign for his return and release. But no, they are that stupid. They didn't change course when given the chance, and instead, just this friggin' week, we had another Democrat journey to El Salvador to get Kilmar back. Maryland Congressman Glenn Ivey proudly boasted his journey to El Salvador to check on his constituent, Abrego Garcia, and was outraged he wasn't allowed in. Folks, I figured it out. Democrats are actively trying to kill their own party. It's a suicide mission. They can't really be dumb enough to be doing this thinking it's going to garner support. But you know what? I've been thinking. These Democrats want to get into that El Salvadoran prison so badly, I think we should let them. They should let them have a cute little sleepover inside with their model citizens and let us know how it went in the morning. What do you think? I personally love it. But those are my losers of the week. Joining me now to lament on it all is the Beau Davidson, or the Beau Show host, Beau Davidson. I changed the name of your show. Feel free to change it if you like. Add the last name in. Why not? I have a lot to talk to you about. Where on my list of losers do you want to go first? The racist WNBA, the ultimate woman, Dylan Mulvaney, or the Democrats who are still taking vacations to El Salvador?
Tommy, I think of those three just because I simply don't care about the WNBA and I'm sick of their trash. Let's go to the Democrats. Let's go to the Democrat Party and the suicide mission that they're on. You mentioned, of course, another Democrat going down to El Salvador, just like AOC did when she went to the border on that photo op tour. I think they're in such a state of disarray as a party. They don't know who their leader is. They don't have a de facto leader. You've got Gavin Newsom saying to Charlie Kirk, well, I think it's unfair for men to be in women's sports, yet now we've got someone that's 16 years old who's beating the crap out of other people in high jump and long jump. So where is Gavin now? Everything is hypocrisy. And I don't think they have any base. They have no leadership. You look at Joe Biden, we find out about AutoPen, what's going on there. No regrets. Nobody has any regrets. No doctors have any regrets. You look at Jake Tapper going on a book tour saying, I didn't know anything. I was just being polite. I think the entire Democratic Party and its mechanisms, meaning the liberal media and elitism, have really it's a spiral downwards. So I agree with you. I'm going to say the Democrats are the big losers this week. And you know what, Tommy? You could choose one every single week. You could choose more than one every single week. I just think in this particular case, whether it's Jasmine Crockett, whether it's someone going down to El Salvador, whether it's the liberal apparatus in the media, they're in a tailspin. And I know we'll talk about a lot of some of the things that they're doing in terms of outreach probably today. I just think that it's a suicide mission and it may be self-sabotage.
Yeah, I've been saying all week that the leader of the Democrat Party is going to be somebody who was born like yesterday, because anybody that's been around to witness the fall of Joe Biden and didn't say anything, I think that they've lost all credibility. Not that they were ever trying to be credible, but they were at least trying to mask their dishonesty. So I think that the leader has got to be somebody who's a toddler, who didn't see the decline of Joe Biden and has a plausible excuse, aka being a toddler, to make up for that. But you mentioned the California thing. So I've been thinking about this all morning because, the Trump administration's been very clear on this. You're violating the executive order. There's a dude who's winning competitions. There's going to be the state championships in California this weekend. And they're, obviously they got a man who's probably going to win it all. But I love their workaround. Okay, their workaround to me is so stupid. They're saying now, in essence, that if an actual girl, if they don't qualify due to the man being in the competition, then that girl can still win something and will still be eligible to advance and this, that, and the other. So essentially, they're admitting that the man has the advantage. They're saying, all right, listen, if you were pushed out because this dude is doing so much better, we'll give you a pity pass and we'll allow you to win something. It's basically like a consolation prize. But don't you think that that's exactly validating the whole premise behind keeping men out of women's sports? They're admitting it, that they have an advantage. That's stupid.
They are, because they're biological differences, whether it's muscle density, whether it's muscle mass, regardless. Clearly, men have a biological advantage, even if they don't win every single time. And here's who you got to feel for. It's not the girl that comes in second place or maybe even third place. It's the girl that comes in fourth place or fifth that doesn't get on that podium. And you know why? Because that's the girl that can't actually advance. So when they say, oh, we'll have maybe the next one go up, what about the one that was after her? What about the chance at the scholarship that you missed now because there's a quota? There's a threshold of how many girls can actually get a scholarship. You are, in essence, admitting the man took that person's place. So there is no workaround here. They are admitting their own fallacy on this, but at the same time, you have to feel for the girls who legitimately train, who legitimately compete. But look, you got another loser there in Dylan Mulvaney, them parading him around with a divine fragrance. So I just see it as they are admitting their own flaws in this, but at the same time, you have to feel for the legitimate girls who are trying to compete and trying to win. President Trump has every right to weigh in on this issue, and we need more people to. And where the hell is Gavin Newsom going to be on this? Yeah. He talked the talk. Is he going to walk the walk?
We know that that's not going to happen. But yeah, I mean, it's so dumb that we're still having this conversation, quite frankly. I just can't believe that they're that dumb that they keep pushing this on us. And you know what, Beau? It's not even Pride Month yet. So I can't wait for that one. I haven't been to Target recently, but I'm sure it's already all on display, and we're going to be hit with the rainbow of everything, which they hijacked, by the way, because rainbows just used to be a pretty thing in the sky, and now it's got to be LGBTQ. So I'm still a little salty about that one. But you're exactly right. The left, they're just so dumb, and they're so woke, and they're so stupid. But speaking of Jake Tapper, I don't give him a lot of credit because he came to the party pretty late on the Joe Biden cognitive decline when he's got the book out, right? And now he's doing the press tour and he's really wanting to pull back the curtain. I mean, you're a few years too late. But I thought that this clip was really interesting here because he's starting to get a taste of the loving and tolerant left that you and I have known for years. Let's take a listen to this surprising revelation.
I went on a left-leaning podcast that shall remain nameless, and we were talking about my kids because I think they were both people without kids. And they asked me about my son, and I said he was, you know, he's a football player and he wants to be a policeman. And their joke was about my 15-year-old son. Oh, how does he feel about minorities? Like the idea that he wants to be a policeman, therefore he's racist, my son. And like, you know, that was the big laugh. And then I got dragged in the comments and all that stuff. And I thought to myself, this is why you losing elections.
100%.
Doesn't surprise me at all that he experienced that. I mean, that's par for the course. I'm not, unused to it by any stretch of the imagination. And, I said last night on Hannity, if Jake Tapper would have said my 15-year-old son wants to be a woman when he grows up, they would have applauded that. But policemen, they must be a racist. Like, that's really how they think, though. So I guess at least they're being honest about it. We can give them that.
Yeah, I suppose so. But let's take it a step back. This is why you effers are losing elections. Okay, maybe that, and also the fact that you lied to people, Jake. You've been lying to people for years. So let's be really honest about this. It's like the fact that he's got this sort of like virtue signaling omniscience about it, like he's above it, like he and his son are somehow above this fray, I think is absurd because if Kamala Harris had won the election, he wouldn't be saying any of this. In fact, I would wager he would have his son probably in some sort of racial sensitivity training before going to the police academy. It's all about perspective. It's all about hindsight is 2020. You can say, now I'm too polite. I should have said something about Joe Biden. You can't be above it. You can't go backwards. Hindsight is always 2020, but where were you then? So I still consider to be Jake Tapper an enormous loser this week because sure, there's some truth in the fact that, of course, this podcaster would assume that a white cop would be racist. That's obvious. They've been saying that for years. But the notion that Jake Tapper is somehow above this, I find to be a bit of a virtue signal. And I think he's part of the problem, not part of the solution.
Yeah, you're right about that. You brought something up that I didn't even have on my list this week, but I'm curious your take on it. There's been some news coverage, rightfully so, about the jailbreak in New Orleans, right? I think we still have 2 thugs at large, like people that have done horrible, awful things, and they're at large. But the more we're learning about the people on the inside that helped him out, these people that supposedly worked at the jail, you'd think that they would care about public safety. But I'm looking at all of these people thus far, and, correct me if I'm wrong, that have been arrested for this, for helping them out and helping, murderers get on the loose or help them once they got out, right? And I noticed a similar pattern between all of them. They happen to not be white. And I think it's crazy that there's no discussion of this whatsoever. Like, okay, so we're not having a problem in the jail here where black people that work in the jail are helping black people that are accused of murder and other things out of the jail, and you guys don't want to have a conversation about this at all? Because for years we've been lectured about how jail is unfair to black people, how law enforcement is unfair to black people, the justice system is unfair to black people, and then you got people working in the jail who are helping black people get out, who are convicted or awaiting trial, I should say, for horrible, awful things, endangering the community and people of all colors. And nobody finds that worth a conversation at all?
I think it's just the elephant in the room. I'm from Memphis. I'm from a very high crime city, and this has been going on for years. And then you go back to the Soros appointed DAs and the criminal justice system that they say is waged against them. But I'm seeing a lot of people get off scot-free, and I don't agree with it. I think it needs to change. Crime is crime. The punishment must fit the crime is how I see it. And if you have people of a particular ethnicity or particular racial group that are helping others of the same, the saying in the South goes, blood is thicker than water. Maybe that's true. But if you don't acknowledge it, if you don't at least say, hey, is there something to this, then it's not being intellectually sound. It's not being intellectually curious enough. I think we have to have some moments of self-reflection, but in today's society, that seems somehow taboo. But now that we've seen the criminal justice system change a bit and seeing the spotlight put on them, maybe, just maybe, we'll see some sort of self-reflection and accountability. I'm not holding my breath, Tomi. I'm just saying it may happen.
I just am concerned that there are social justice warriors that are working within the jail and prison system. And if so, that's a little concerning. We don't want activist judges, but we don't want activist wardens or people that are working in any capacity at the jail. I don't care what color they are, but if you're a social justice activist that doesn't think there should be prisons or jails and you believe in lawlessness, I have some concerns. So I think maybe we need to look into that. And there's been a lot of things that have happened in New Orleans over the span of the last, 2025 that are concerning. So we need some new leadership. Like, this is a big problem. We still got 2 people on the loose. It's been 2 weeks. Like, this is unacceptable at every level. And I think that they haven't been fully acknowledging it. So that's just a side point there. But I do want to talk about another aspect of the criminal justice system that the Democrats are really pissed about, and that's the Chrisley family and that pardon. Let's take a little look at the clip here of President Trump calling Savannah Chrisley to let her know the good news.
That's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing, but it's a great thing because your parents are going to be free and clean, and I hope we can do it by tomorrow. Is that okay? We'll try getting it done tomorrow. So
wonderful.
Give them, I don't know them, but give them my regards and wish them a good life.
Mr. President.
Yes. How are you?
I just want to say thank you for bringing my parents back.
Yeah, well, they were given a pretty harsh treatment based on what I'm hearing. Pretty harsh treatment.
Yes, sir.
Was your brother fighting also for this release, right?
Hey, I go to the University of Alabama, and I saw you speak, and I said, that's the greatest presidential speech I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, that's good. I was just there. I gave the commencement. What a great group of people. If you were in the audience, you have to be good. What a good school it was, and I love Alabama.
So now the Chrisley family, they're obviously celebrities. They've had a running reality show for many, many, many years, right? And that's actually, Nashville is a big part of it. And Savannah Chrisley lives here in Nashville, of course. So it's really weird to me, like, they're outraged at the Chrisley family. They're getting this part in here. And regardless of what you think about what they did or whatever, I thought that the left loved to see people get out of jail, especially celebrities. So I'm once again a little confused.
Yeah, it's, touche, I guess, as they say. I think the reality show, I did used to watch it years ago. I thought it was outlandish and silly. I think it gave a sense of false wealth from the Chrisleys. It was always about what they were wearing. It was kind of ridiculous. I don't know all the details of the case. 12 years for the man and 7 years for the wife, I think it seems harsh. But in the same breath that we're talking about criminal justice, bank fraud and tax evasions are pretty big crimes. And for me, I have to be intellectually consistent with this. I do think the punishment should fit the crime. So I have to say this story rubbed me a little bit the wrong way, because I don't know if we should just be giving blanket pardons to everyone just because they supported President Trump, any more than I would say someone should be given a pardon for supporting Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. Because when the shoe's on the other foot, we're going to call it that way. So, I don't know. I don't like the idea of people getting off scot-free. Hey, props to them for getting their parents back. Everybody wants to see their parents home safe and sound. However, if they did commit crimes of this nature, I don't know if getting out is a good thing. But by the same token, we talked about the weaponized criminal justice system. If we do have rogue DAs and rogue judges that are punishing people simply on the virtue of their political affiliation and calling these folks the Trumps of the South, that is a problem. Yeah. So I hope that there was a lot of introspection on this, just in terms of, were they rogue judges? And also, I just like to know, did the punishment fit the crime? I don't know if I agree with just blanket pardons.
Yeah, and you're perfectly right to say that. And I was thinking the same thing, quite honestly. I think it's more, to me, the outrage that I see from those on the left. It's like, just be consistent. And I don't know if their punishment was excessive or not. I know Savannah's been working really hard to get her parents out. And, you see people that commit horrific things and, they're walking the streets, especially in Tennessee. So you're like, okay, this seems a little wild, but I get point taken, well taken. Yeah. I want to talk about some other things that are going on that are crazy. Okay. There appears to be a Secret Service issue. Now, we all know the Secret Service issue that we had when our former, now current president was nearly assassinated, and you saw the female Secret Service agents that were unable to even unholster their weapon. That was embarrassing. But now, apparently, there's some Secret Service agents in charge of protecting former President Obama, and we have some footage of their brawl, I guess it was. This is a weird trend here. Now, to my knowledge, it was 2 female Secret Service agents, and I don't think this is the first time that female Secret Service agents have been involved in something like this. What do you make of it?
Well, let's be honest, Tommy. If they're fighting with each other, guess what they're not doing? Their jobs to protect the former president. And I think, frankly, Barack Obama should be worried about this because any time that's not spent protecting him is time spent where someone else could be trying to hurt him. And I wish him no harm. I wish no former president harm or any current president or future president. But let's be honest, Barack Obama set this in motion. It's DEI. So if we're not going to base this on merit, if it's not a meritocracy that gets us into the Secret Service and our first responders and our doctors and our policemen, and it's based on skin color, then that's a problem. And I honestly reminded me a little bit, Tommy, of when I used to live in Memphis. There was they had this drag queen fight that was at a McDonald's, and the drag queen started throwing their go-go boots at the workers, and the workers, in order to fend them off, had to throw hot fry grease at them. That's kind of what it reminded me of. It's sad, but it's true. It's a bad look. I think we all knew, based on what you just said earlier, that Secret Service needed a major retooling. I'm hopeful that Sean Curran will do that job and will do it well and do it efficiently. You know, we're not that far into the Trump presidency, but and there's things that have to be fixed. So, you know, Doge is one of them. Obviously, there's so many things that need to be fixed. I hope that Sean will do a deep dive into this and figure out what's going on, because whether you're protecting the current president or a former president, this is a terrible look. It looks like stuff you would see on a reality show.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to be honest. I think that the conservatives use like the DEI thing. They overuse it. If I go on a plane and I see there's a female pilot, I don't have a problem with it unless, you know, I find out that they got that position because they were a female. But there are certain areas where I'm like, okay, you can't just say DEI for everything. Just because it's a woman or whatever, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad at their job. But I will be honest. If I was someone who needed Secret Service protection or just basic security, I would not want a woman doing that job. I don't want a woman protecting me. I'm sorry, I don't. I want a big, giant man protecting me. and that's the thing. Like, there are many things that I believe women do well, better than men, and in certain circumstances. But when it comes to protecting somebody, especially when it's a former president, current president, leader of state, I don't think that that's the role for a female who, as we, to our previous discussion about the advantages of being a biological male physically, like, I don't see it. I don't see why. But I think it's something we're always going to have to live with. Let's talk about some other things that are crazy. So the things in the air, you know, they're not going well. Flights are canceled. They're diverted. We don't have enough air traffic controllers. People are fighting each other. And there was a couple of recent incidents that I want to get your take on, just as we have some fun on a Thursday. Let's start with the pigeons. I want to play a clip of this. Apparently there was not one but two pigeons on this Delta flight. And passengers, they had to spring into action to get these pigeons. And, people were freaking out. I think I've seen children that I would, prefer a pigeon in the child's place on an aircraft. But what's your take? What would you do if you saw a couple pigeons?
Well, I'm imagine, first of all, tell me what one pigeon said to the other. Hey, dude, watch this. Hold my beer. You know, I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but I feel like that's kind of that's what I'm imagining happened. Props to the guys who took their jackets and used them as nets. I mean, if I had a jacket on, I would try to do the same thing. At some point, this is where, again, the conservative male in me, the alpha, says, you want to be a hero. You want to do what's right. You want to help the whole group out. The problem is that most people today, and I don't know when you flew recently, Tommy, probably in the past week, but people don't even know how to get on an airplane anymore. They take forever down the aisle. They're so clueless when it comes to it. I'm amazed that this situation was put under control as fast as it was. So I got to give the guys props for using their jackets as nets. But you mentioned air traffic control. There's some major holes in air traffic control right now with these sometimes near misses, sometimes actual not misses at all. They've made contact. I hope that air traffic control can keep an eye on things like birds. We know what happened with Sully, his heroic acts in the Hudson. We don't want to see more of that. So I'm hoping air traffic control shores up its duties as well, just like I think Sean Curran should shore up the duties at Secret Service. So heroism in action. This is actually a good story. I think that these guys took the matters into their own hands. But I agree with you. Sometimes I'd rather have a pigeon next to me than a passenger.
Yeah. And sometimes, in many cases, the pigeons are cleaner. There's another
Indeed.
thing that happened in the air. There was a woman that got very mad. A child insulted her, called her Miss Piggy. And then, things went down. Let's take a listen to this news story.
But according to this arrest report, Crampton and witnesses on the plane tell police the child called Crampton fat and Miss Piggy, telling her she couldn't fit in the airplane seat. That's when witnesses say Crampton began hitting the child with her fist and then hit him on the head with a water bottle. Then the report says she slammed the child's head into the airplane window. The child used his arms to cover his head. Airport police haven't said how old the child is, but Crampton told police the child was very rude and disrespectful during their trip to Disney, and that after the child called her fat, she took his phone away. She claims he then pushed her arm off the armrest twice, and that's when she began smacking him. But police and witnesses say she went beyond typical disciplinary actions. One witness saying the woman was not correcting the child, she was abusing him.
So originally when I saw this story, I thought that she was hitting somebody else's kid. But
Right.
after seeing the news story, it seems it was her own child.
Yeah. Yeah.
It seemed like, to slam his head against the window, that seems like a lot. I wasn't there, obviously. I don't know the extent of the disciplinary action. I'm somebody that does believe in parenting with a firm hand, especially in public. So if I had a kid who was calling me fat and Miss Piggy and whatever, like, they might get a slap. The slamming it into the airplane window, that's another level. But I'm wondering your take on it. If someone called you fat Miss Piggy and it was your own child, how would you react in public?
God help me if my son called me Miss Piggy, that'd be a problem. Then there's a whole other series of problems there if he thinks I'm transgender at that point. But what it tells me, Tomi, is that okay, so the child was disrespectful, and I agree with you. I was trying to figure out whose kid this was. I think it is hers. It tells me that number one, she's a bad parent, because if you've allowed the level of disrespect to get to this point, you're probably a bad parent. It's probably not the first time this has happened. If they're calling you fat and Miss Piggy, this just wasn't picked up at the playground the other day. There's a level of disrespect there that I think is completely unnecessary. So bad parenting to begin with. But still, no disrespect merits the physical abuse of a child. I don't think there's any level of physical abuse that merits the disrespect of a child. So to me, this is white trash stuff.
What about spanking? Because I'll tell you a little anecdote from when Tomi was a wee girl. I think I was maybe 7 or 8. And when I was 7 or 8, I'm a proud millennial. This was a really popular thing to do. The loser, right? So one time I made the mistake. My dad asked me to do something, and I threw up the big L on my forehead, and I got spanked. And I will never forget it, because to me, it's like all the kids do the loser thing. Like, that was a big thing when I was little. But I believe in a spanking. Listen, I never did it again. And abuse, there's a line. Abuse is never tolerated. But I sometimes wonder if in this coddling society that we have, if people see basic discipline as abuse. Like, where is the line? That's what I'd like to know about this story.
There is a line. I do agree with you. And I've had the firm hand myself. I've had the paddle. I've had the switch, the weeping willow. I've had the hand too. I've had all of the above. And I do believe in a firm hand, of course, but I do think there's a line with physical abuse that just can't be crossed.
You're right about that. Okay, let's go into some other fun stuff. This was Monday. I think they did this on Memorial Day, which is stupid to me. But the American Music Awards, right? I don't watch a music award show or a television award show or a movie award show anymore because I think it's a freak show. And, J.Lo there, she kind of just affirmed it. I don't understand in what part of your performance as a 55-year-old woman you have to kiss multiple people on stage. Why is that part of the performance? I don't actually care when people are, oh no, they're gyrating, they're dancing sexy. That doesn't really bother me much because I think that could be a part of a performance in some cases. But the kiss everybody on the stage? Why?
She's 55. Okay, good for her. She still got it. She can dance. I watched it. I mean, she's got the moves. There's no doubt about it. I'll agree with that. But then I noticed as the performance went on, there was the sign sex that was illuminated above her head. And you just kind of at that point go, okay, this is so predictable. It's so lowbrow. Where have these award shows just devolved to? I found the kissing to be absolutely gratuitous. It came out of nowhere. It was unnecessary. It reminded me when Madonna kissed Brittney and Christina Aguilera. It comes out and it's done for shock value. If you're 55 and you're J.Lo, okay, you're going through a breakup or divorce or whatever it is, it doesn't merit that. And I don't know what that does for people. It must be for the shock value. I think it seemed very lowbrow and unclassy.
Especially for somebody like her that's been in this business for so long, like you kind of expect them to behave like a professional, and these kisses for shock value, it's like, that's what I'd expect to see from somebody who maybe just started out and, they wanted like a moment or something because nobody was talking about them. But J.Lo, also, maybe there's a reason why you can't keep a man. Who knows? Not my place to say, but I think there's something to that there.
Yeah.
The next thing I want to do, we have a lot of moments this week. We have a lot to get to. So this has been going around all week, but it's the slap, or I guess the face to the hand of the face moment for Macron and his wife, who is considerably older than him. This has been going around. We now have lip readers that say that she said something about him being a loser. They passed it off as play fighting. How would you interpret it?
It looks abusive to me. We talked about the girl who beat the crap out of her kid basically on the plane. I think it looks abusive. But then again, Emmanuel Macron is kind of like the little macaron cookie, that you see in French bakeries. It's little, it's filled with sugar, and ultimately unfulfilling. That's how I view Emmanuel Macron. So, but here's the thing I took away from it. If your wife can do that to you, and it's on public display, what can world leaders do to you? Unfortunately, it makes the French look weak. It makes their leadership
Well, they don't need
weak.
help doing that.
Then it just devolves to an even lower territory, is the way I see it. It looked bad. And again, I think that shows that his wife doesn't respect him. And again, if you see no respect in a relationship, there's probably bigger issues that you need to think about, including who you're electing as your leader of a country.
Yeah. Now, I want to know the backstory here because I just have a feeling, and I don't know, this is just me speculating, but for a woman to get to that point, usually there's some level of infidelity involved because that's usually when you see that type of reaction. She found something out. She saw a message. She saw a DM. I don't know. This is me speculating. But because of the number of reality shows that I watch, anytime I've ever seen a woman get to that level, it's because something like that was involved. So we're going to wait and see. There could be more on the horizon from that. I don't know if they'll ever be honest about it, but what a weird moment to not be aware that the cameras were there, by the way. I think that's another thing. Whoopsie, the mic is always on. The last thing I want to talk to you about is something that is very serious, and that's, I don't know why people live in Seattle. I can't figure that out, but they're trying to have a Christian concert, and they're trying to talk about wholesome Christian things and celebrate their faith. And of course, the Antifa, LGBTQ, green hair, whatever they are, they have to attack these Christians, and it's so egregious, and it's so violent, and it's so ugly, and it's so just typical. And, the mayor backing it up, by the way, which doesn't surprise me, it's Seattle. I just don't know at what point, even in these deep blue cities, do you have leaders that, I don't know, maybe just stand up for just basic decency?
Well, we mentioned it earlier, at the top of the show, the fact that Democrats are really the big losers of the week. Even with that SAM plan they have, speaking to American men, which is insane. I call it stupidity against men, if you ask me that. It's basically that there's such a disconnect that decency is lost. Gavin Newsom can't find it. AOC can't find it. Jasmine Crockett can't find it. There is completely a lack of decency in the party, which is why they are rudderless. There is no navigational beacon. Christianity, I'm a Christian, it's always been under attack. I think it's gotten worse. But to me, since we are seeing, a resurgence of Bible activity, Bible reading, I think we're starting to see a watershed moment where the younger generations, whether it's Gen Z or even younger, they're going to see the hypocrisy in this. And I think it's not going to bode well for Democrats in the next several elections, because the more that you try to relegate Christians to less than the base level person, I think what happens is you're gonna find a flip, and I think we're starting to see that. President Trump thankfully has a faith office, and we're starting to see these moments where I think lunacy, I hope, is out the window and we restore sanity.
Yeah, now, and my take on this too, I think these people that do this kind of thing, these Antifa, these green hairs, whatever they affiliate themselves with, LGBTQ, Antifa, BLM, whatever it is, I think these people hate themselves. And I think that because they have such a deep self-hatred that they act out like this, and because there's no consequences, they just continue to do it. And it gives them some kind of a feeling of worthiness, I think, when they do this. That they attack a Christian, a woman, and with her child, it's a beautiful family. They look at themselves. They're dressed like a kitty cat. They got green hair. They got the septum piercing. I think that they hate people that are normal so much. And they've been rewarded by acting out, that's how they find their place and their validation in society, is by acting this way. But I'd also say, I've said it for weeks now, actually longer than that. There's a reason that people are moving to red states. And I get it. I have a lot of people that are like, you can't just pick up and leave because it's like this. And I get it. But it's almost like being in a bad relationship. You want to stick it out and you want to just try to make it work, but at some point it's toxic. So for those people who are living in places like Portland or Seattle, where this stuff is commonplace and these freaks run wild, I don't know why people stay there. Because if I lived in those places and especially if I had a family, there's nothing that would make me put up with this.
Right. And, I think some of the recent statistics in terms of moving, I think Pods put out a study on this, that the biggest exodus is coming from Los Angeles. Shouldn't surprise you. I think you used to be there. And one of the biggest places people are moving to is a place like Dallas, Texas, or even Nashville, Tennessee, or down here where I am in Miami. People want to go to red states because the governance is simply better. The speech is freer. The air is better. The communities are better. Neighbors watch over one another. There's a sense of community. In these left-leaning states, it doesn't happen. And that's why you're seeing the exodus that you do. And I agree with you. It's not easy to just pick up and move. But at some point, like you said, toxicity sets in and you say, I've got to do what's best for myself and my family. And if I don't want them being raised next to stuff like what you're talking about, where Antifa is antagonizing me for just going to church or having a Christian event, I'm going to leave. And eventually that's going to hurt your taxpayer base too. So I think these blue states they're going to have to turn things around pretty fast, or else they're going to lose everybody.
Yeah, and I get it. People have lived somewhere their whole lives. They got family there. You don't want to just pick up and move your family and your roots. But I think the people that they actually have made the move. Everybody that I know that's done it has been so relieved. And there's things that they had to leave behind, but they're just so much happier when they're in a red state and this doesn't happen to you on a daily basis. And you don't have to worry about being attacked, where you can wear a mega hat, or you can be a Christian, or you can go to the Starbucks and you're not, accosted by a giant trans thingy. Like, it's just, I don't understand it. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Come to a red state. You'll see. You can breathe here. It's great. Beau, I always appreciate our conversations. We had a lot to get to today, and I think we tackled it all from pigeons to green hairs. Thank you, as always, for being here.
It's my pleasure, Tomi. I appreciate you.
That does it for this episode of Tomi Lahren is Fearless. I will see you back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern for a special episode on, get this, how psychedelics, yes, psychedelics, could be used to safely treat some mental health conditions. We're going to do a deep dive into it. It's actually really very interesting, so I encourage you to watch the episode. You can also catch full episodes of the show on Outkick and Fox Nation. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.